Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Well, today I'm in this 2006 Porsche Boxster. This is the second generation Boxster, known as the 987, which ran from 2005 until 2012. I'm a big fan of the Boxster. I think it provides you with everything you could possibly wish for from a fun little sports car. I think I've said this before in other videos, but I actually prefer the Boxster to the 911. You see, the 911 marks you out as a bit of a hobbyist. I always get the impression that the 911 was made for rich anoraks, whereas the Boxster, on the other hand, is just made for normal humans who want a nice, fun sports car that'll put a grin on your face. The first generation, which came out all the way back in 1996, was a huge hit. It massively helped turn around Porsche's fortunes. This second generation Boxster takes that simple idea, that recipe, and runs with it. Everything is that little bit better than the 986. It's quite a simple recipe if you think about it. Engine in the middle, drive to the rear wheels, great looks, great handling, and great build quality. What more could you want? There's the poster of a Boxster which hangs in my mechanic's office, and on it says something like pure Porsche. And every time I see it I think, it is, isn't it? It is pure Porsche. They always get a bit of stick for being a hairdresser's car or the car of choice for somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about, but I think that's nonsense. It's just the usual trite from jealous people who don't know what they're talking about. Firstly, let's discuss its looks. I think it's a huge improvement over its predecessor. That had those melted headlights which I don't think have aged well at all. On this one they've gone back to the clean round lights which look a whole lot better. I think it's aged really well, and I mean it should continue to do so for a long time. In fact, the whole design's very clean and crisp. You'd never know this was a 17-year-old car. I guess that's because all Boxsters largely look the same. If you park this next to a 718 Boxster, you'd have a hard time telling them apart. Moving inside, it's exactly the same idea. It's clean, it's crisp, it's timeless. I'm grateful there's no sat-nav which immediately dates a car from this period. Again, the interior's a big improvement over the 986. They look a bit dated now. This doesn't. And you get a surprising amount of storage too. For example, you get a glove box, which you don't get in an MX-5. You get 2 cup holders, door pockets, and even more storage behind the rear seats. Speaking of seats, the seats are great. They're both soft but also supportive. You can do a lot of miles in this and get out the other end and not look like you've had an accident. We might as well do a bit of a performance test, hadn't we? So drop down to third, 4,000 RPM, 5,000. Sounds great, this. Bear in mind this is just the Boxster, it isn't the Boxster S. Performance is still very sharp. Of course, with the roof down there is quite a bit of wind noise, as you'd expect, but it's all part of it. It is great fun, this. It's currently 4 degrees outside, so it's a bit of a shame it doesn't have one of those Mercedes-style neck warmers. For a 17-year-old car done 87,000 miles, feels surprisingly sharp, nimble. That is really a testament to Porsche's build quality. Oh yes. It isn't ridiculously quick, but it sounds lovely. When you don't drive a Porsche every day, it's easy to forget how good the build quality is. Everything you touch and feel just feels that bit better. Every button, every switch, even the carpets feel thick. I love the concise, precise gauge clusters, and even the racy font. It all works. You'd really never know you're in such an old car. It's the perfect modern classic, this. Better watch what I'm doing here. I don't end up doing a James Dean, do I? God bless. That noise between 4,500 RPM just sings. Depending how the first owner spec the Boxster, you can get them with some quite nice options. Cruise control, Bose audio, heated seats. To be fair, heated seats are a must in my opinion. It means you can take it out on a dry January day like today and still have a toasty bottom. For a small 2-seat roadster like this, there's plenty of space inside. It doesn't feel cramped at all. You get armrests either side, everything's within reach, nothing's compromised. What a beautiful day it is up here in the Derbyshire Dales. There's all... If you you just heard what sounded like gunfire, it isn't gunfire. It's actually a modified Fiesta ST. I shan't pass any comment, you know me, I'm not very judgmental. There's also plenty of space for your luggage because you get not one, but two boots. Because it's mid-engine, you get something which the Americans refer to as a frunk. The one at the rear is a reasonable size for a piece of luggage, but the one at the front's surprisingly deep. That's something else which this beats a 911 at. It's got twice as many boots. The ride quality is a bit firm as you might expect, but it's not intolerable. I guess I've waffled on about carpets and cup holders for long enough now. You're probably wondering what it's like to drive. Well, in short, it is a blast. It's responsive, it's balanced, the steering's perfect, sounds great. It's plenty quick enough without it feeling like a handful. It's just got it all. This gives you everything you get for an MX-5, but with a meatier engine and a better finish. Speaking of engines, there are a couple of options. The old 2.5's long gone. That was replaced with a 2.7 like the one featured in this. It's a flat 6 and it produces 240 horsepower. It's quite grunty and raspy. It's linked to a 5-speed manual gearbox, which is nice and slick to operate. Although if you do lots of motorway miles, you'll really wish it were a 6. I usually always advise that you go for an automatic. They're just much easier to live with on a daily basis. The novelty of changing gears yourself soon wears off, but if you're buying this as a second car, as a weekend toy, then I definitely advise you go for a manual. You've got to, it's just much more fun. If you go for a Boxster S, that initially had a 3.2 litre flat 6, but that was later increased to a 3.4. The Boxster S gets about 55 more horses, which is quite a leap. While I'd always advise that you go for the bigger engine, in a car that only weighs 1,300 kilos, 240 horsepower is enough. Instead, what I'd advise you do is just find the nicest one out there. I wouldn't get caught up on whether it's a 2.7 or a 3.2 or a 3.4, just find the nicest example. Because this is rear-wheel drive, if you go for the manual, a quick flick of the clutch, and you can fishtail this wherever you like. Which I know is juvenile, but who doesn't like to do that? It's been a while since I've driven one of these, and I'd forgotten how much fun they were. As a weekend toy, this is all you need. The only downside with the Boxster, in my own experience, is that you won't want to use it as an everyday car. Anything like this is just too compromised. All the reasons you love it on day one will be the exact same reasons you detest it after day 30. If you daily drive one of these, it won't be long until you're bored. Don't get me wrong, it's great on a Sunday afternoon, but on a rainy Monday morning, you don't want to be in something like this. That's what I've always found anyway. For years and years, I'd always switch between a sports car and SUV. Then I'd get bored of the SUV, so I'd buy another sports car. Then I'd get bored of the sports car, so I'd buy another SUV. Always. Only recently have I discovered the only way forward, really, is to have both. That's my genuine, sincere advice, which might make your other half's eyes roll, but you just won't want to use something like this every day. So you'll need your ordinary car, saloon car, or SUV, whatever you've chosen, plus one of these as a toy. There you go. I'm like an enabler, aren't I? In terms of running costs, then it really won't break the bank. Well, not for a Porsche, anyway. This 2.7 will realistically average mid-20s in terms of MPG. On a long, steady run, you'll get high 30s, which isn't bad, really, is it? The biggest kick in the stomach, unfortunately, is the road tax. Here in the UK, this will set you back £615 a year. Saying that, if you use this as I would, I keep it in the garage for the winter, so I just get 6 months tax in March and use it for the summer. There you go, more money saving tips. Servicing costs aren't much higher than anything else like this. Parts can be though, but luckily this is a very popular car and Porsche sold lots of them, so you'll always be able to find copied parts or used parts on the internet. Generally speaking, they're very reliable cars. Early examples can suffer from the dreaded IMS bearing issue. Having said that, that's usually an issue for 996 911s and occasionally 986 Boxsters. If that really concerns you and you find a Boxster which hasn't had it done, then take it to a Porsche specialist and you'll have it done for about £1,500. I'd recommend investing in a trickle charger, something like a C-Tech, and just leave it plugged in all the time. I'd also recommend finding a good Porsche specialist and just letting them take care of it. I wouldn't necessarily bother taking it to a Porsche main dealer because they're quite expensive. Used prices here in the UK start at around £7,000 and they shouldn't drop an awful lot further than that. You need to look for one with good service records. I wouldn't even consider buying one with patchy history. Something else to point out, they'll have all had multiple owners. It's just that kind of car. People buy these kinds of cars on a whim and then realise they haven't used them an awful lot and then sell them on. So if you see one which has had 10 owners, it genuinely wouldn't put me off. I think this one's had 4, which is quite low for a Boxster. Service history is the main thing, so make sure it's got good service records. If I were in the market for this kind of car, then I'd definitely consider a Boxster. It just does everything you want from it really well. You often hear people say something like, well, you can't buy the Boxster because one day you'll be sat at some traffic lights and someone will pull up in a 911 and you'll just feel like a loser. That is absolute nonsense. I couldn't disagree more. The Boxster gives you 90% of 911 for 50% of the price. The 911 is just for rich nerds. Oh, I've got a 997.2 3.4 wide body S. It's got Spasm and Sports Chrono. Has it? Right. How fascinating. But that's really handy on the A57 on a Tuesday morning, isn't it? What an interesting man you are. Tell me more. Right, well, I think that's about it. I'm off now to have some more imaginary conversations with more 911 owners. And thank you once again for watching. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'll leave the link below. And yeah, cheers guys. Happy New Year.